Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a special one-off episode of RSE for Grown-Ups. We are very excited to be back in the studio, very excited to be talking to you all again. And thank you so much to everybody who's listened to the 10 podcast episodes that came out so far. It's been amazing to kind of engage with your feedback on that and hear some of your comments and ask some questions and really watch that conversation kind of come to life in different spaces other than just us two sitting in a studio, which has been really nice. So why are we here today? Why are we back?
So we obviously recorded all 10 episodes of RSE for Grown-Ups, and a lot of them were centered around what young people would be learning in it, depending on what key stage they were in with regards to the RSE curriculum. So we spent a lot of time doing that. And then in July 2025, just gone, the government have released new RSE guidance. So we thought that it would be a really good idea to come back and talk about what some of those changes might look like. A lot of it is still the same, but I guess there have been more subjects added in. There's more focus on certain areas that we have previously discussed. So we thought it would be good to expand on those for parents and carers to just know exactly what has been added, what maybe has been taken away, what are some of the focuses for young people, and to make them feel really confident that the RSE curriculum will still be taught in an age and developmentally appropriate way. Because we were talking just before we started recording about how the new RSE guidance is actually very reactive and relevant to what young people are experiencing at the moment. And there does come some challenges with that, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So what are some of the new things? What are some of the new focuses that we're going to see on the RSE guidance now?
So I think that to begin with, we need to talk about the big additions to the curriculum. And from our perspective, something that is a good thing really that has been added is that there is a lot more emphasis on online behaviour. So we recorded our episode on raising boys and young men, and we talked a lot about misogyny and the kind of online rhetoric that was happening at the moment. But actually the curriculum has kind of gone a bit further to add in some of those real causes of harm. So now we're going to start looking at things like deep fakes, the impact of AI, the impact of things like sextortion and exploitation online, and how some of that online rhetoric can also present as real life challenges. But I think it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because AI is like a whole new world for everybody.
Yeah, and we were talking, weren't we, about how we don't have the answers and we're finding it really difficult at the moment. We have when this podcast goes live, it will be Sexual Health Week.
It will.
And the theme is Chronically Online. And we have been asked by schools and some of our other partners to engage young people in this topic. So we were sort of brainstorming in the office. Okay, so what does that look like? What advice are we going to give young people? What do we want them to know? What do we want them to learn? And a lot of it is we want them to be able to protect themselves and to develop really good critical thinking about what they see online and what they believe and what they share and what they don't share and what they engage with. But that's really hard to teach, and we're still not sure what some of those answers look like or what schools are sort of, how they're going to approach those topics in the classroom.
No. And I think that we'll do as much as we can to kind of try and learn as much as we can and get as involved as we can. But actually, one of the topics that we discussed was deep fakes. So for anybody that doesn't know, deep fake pornographic images essentially where anybody's photo can be uploaded and turned into an AI generated porn image. So when we talk about young people and being online and sharing their information and how they protect themselves, how can we teach people to protect themselves from something that they have no involvement in, essentially? Like someone could just take your harmless holiday selfie or something and turn it into a really explicit image, and you would have no control over that. So I think that with the assemblies that we're doing in schools, in Sexual Health Week, and with the sessions we're going to do with parents and professionals, we're really emphasising that this is really bad and some of this stuff, and we don't know the answer, but all we can actually teach is how do you remove content? As a parent, if your child came to you and said, oh my God, somebody's created this deep fake image of me, would you know how to use report remove tool? Would you know how to go through COP? All of those kind of things, and get that image removed, because it's not cool.
No.
There's not really a lot we can do about it. And when we talk about sexting and sending nudes, and we come from a very like harm reduction perspective of like, well, don't put your face in it and no identifiable image. But actually, if somebody can just generate that image from nowhere, it's really difficult.
We saw some stuff online, didn't we? We did a bit of our online research, and we scrolled TikTok and what people were saying and what maybe things in the media had happened about deep fakes. And we saw somebody talking about how they had no idea that an image of them had been like their clothes had been removed in this image, and they'd been made to like the image had been made sexual, and they were only stumbled across it because a friend said, hey, there's this image of you online. And basically a lot of these tools that are used to remove people's clothing are also only removing women's clothing.
Yeah,
so they're only programmed to remove a female's clothing, not a male's.
Yeah, it's like the worst thing about it. Like if you're going to create, and like the demand is only there to essentially remove women's clothing. And I think I might have mentioned it before on the podcast when we were talking about it, but my son, who's 13, who was on an episode before, had adverts, like repeated adverts on like, I don't know, like a match game or a bubble pop game, something really sort of simple. And every time the adverts came on, it was advertising for an AI girlfriend. And it's like, what? That's like targeting a 13-year-old through a game. And those are the kind of things that we need to make young people aware of, because I don't know, like how do you explain to young people that everything exists to like make a profit? Like if somebody's developing an AI girlfriend, it's not like there for your mental health and well-being. It's there to encourage you to like spend money on that or that kind of thing. Like if they're creating deep fake image programs that only take women's clothes off, it's because people are paying, potentially men are paying to utilize that software. And none of this exists like entirely by accident. So that's kind of part of the conversation we need to be having.
Definitely,
really.
Yeah, making young people aware. We do lots of stuff with young people, don't we, in our one-to-ones about what do you see on your For You page? I know you do with some of the young girls that you work with. Like, what does your For You page look like at the moment, and what would you actually like it to look like?
Yeah, we do. And we talk about like, how do you curate your news feed? And like, do they know how to do things like if you're seeing content that you don't like, say, I don't like this, until it stops appearing in your content, and then you go and find I don't know, I spent this weekend watching videos of people opening Fortnum and Mason picnics on my reels.
That's so niche.
Yeah, it's so niche, but I had a great time, and now there's loads of those videos coming up on my timeline. But it's more just like, how do we change our algorithm? And I know like with my daughter, she's 8, one of the conversations we had, and one of the things that we looked at online, she said, I know when I go back to school next week, everyone's just going to be talking about all this like Italian brain rot, which is not Italian. Like they're not speaking Italian. It's just nonsense that sounds like somebody speaking Italian, which is the worst thing about it. And you and I watched some of those videos, and it was terrible, wasn't it?
It was terrible. And we also saw a common theme that the character that was portrayed as a woman in these like brain rot videos, where
who's not a woman, who's like a cappuccino in a china cup.
Well, she has a cappuccino head, but then a female's body, doesn't she?
Yeah, she was like just cappuccino ballerina or something.
Yeah, and she was just always being beaten up by the supposed like the equivalent of the bloke in the relationship, and she was just having repeated relationships with men that were beating her up, but also having this person's children. Like that was the story in amongst the absolute weirdness of the.
And this is AI generated content. This is AI generated
So from
content.
first glance, it looks like it doesn't make any sense. But actually, if you are using like your critical thinking skills and you're seeing it for what it is just a play out of an abusive relationship, essentially. And like maybe people would say to us, you're reading way too much into that.
I mean, potentially, but like to be really honest, we were watching a video of a cappuccino that looked like a woman repeatedly having her head smashed in with a baseball bat.
Yeah.
And the only thing that brought that content to our attention was my 8-year-old saying, I don't want to see Italian brain rot videos. How do I get rid of them? And me going through her like YouTube shorts. They don't have like TikTok or Instagram or anything like that, but it's everywhere. Like, and again, it really links back to letting these kids know that somebody is profiting off of creating an AI generated video that doesn't really mean anything, or that they don't care about the harm that it has, because the characters are like coded. So like, oh, the woman character is coded to just have babies and exist, and the male character is coded to be aggressive. And so the AI just puts all this together with a load of like nonsense, and they're just like, oh yeah, this is funny, but it's not funny.
No.
And it's really harmful. And it's like, parents potentially, I didn't really know up until like last week
I had
what
no
all this
idea.
was about. And like, parents don't really know.
No, and also when you think of harmful content, because that quite leads us on quite nicely actually to talking about the other aspects of the new guidance, which talks a lot about harmful sexual content and just harmful content online in general, especially around things like pornography and incel culture and misogyny. But when we think of harmful content, maybe we think of those things. Whereas actually, if your 8-year-old is being targeted because that seems like a quite funny, like, oh, cappuccino and what's the other thing called?
Like a crocodile, I don't know.
And the bomb.
And the shark bomb.
Whatever. Like we have no
Someone's going to watch this and be like, for God's sake, it's called this, this.
But all those things, like I would still classify that as like, I know it's brain rot in inverted commas, and it is just meant to be absolute nonsense, like you said, but it's not.
It's harmful.
It's like harmful stereotyping. It's like absolute rubbish for them to be watching. Like they don't need to be engaging with things like that. Your daughter said that people were just talking in
nonsense.
that nonsense language at school, and she was like, I don't know what they're saying. Like I don't understand.
And I think that is really hard, because I am really strict on the internet and kids, and I know that there are a lot of people that struggle with that, because. And I know, like, with our jobs and the work we do and the things we see, it does make you more paranoid. But I don't want to really be part of it. I don't really want to facilitate it. You can go on YouTube sometimes, but it makes my toes curl when I think about like what you could be watching, essentially. So it's not really a thing that happens. And then they do genuinely get to the point where it's like, oh, but you're making me miss out on the jokes, the lulls and the in things, and
the things that are happening, things that people are talking
like
about
the
at school.
discourse,
If people are talking in a different language because of some silly videos, like as a young person, you want to be engaged and involved with that. And we spoke about this on our last episode when we talked about young people online. And I've worked with young people who are going through a really difficult time with their mental well-being and their mental health. And I said, what's the one thing that you would do to improve your mental health right now? And they would say to me, stop using my phone. I'd get rid of TikTok. I'd get rid of Instagram. I said, well, why don't you? And they said, because then that would put me at disadvantage. I would not be the same as my peers. I couldn't engage in the same way. I'd be left out. I'd be the odd one out. And that's just really sad that's the point where we're at. And this is why all this stuff is being introduced on the curriculum.
And I think the point that we really need to acknowledge, and the fact is that you can add this to the curriculum, but what has been given to the teachers, like what training has been given to the teachers, what resources have been made available to them, how do they know about all this stuff? Like how are they supposed to know what to do about deep fake pornography because they're a geography teacher or a PE teacher? It's really difficult. And I think that there's a lot of like scapegoating in there. It's like, oh well, we've added it to the curriculum, we did our job. It's like, okay, so how do we implement that?
Absolutely.
And we are going to work really hard on that. And we're going to put together assemblies and resources and do what we always do and work really hard to try and engage young people in that conversation. But at the end of the day, it's more just like, it's such an issue. It's not just about you need to be aware of incel culture, you need to be aware of deep fakes, you need to be aware of AI. It's more like we need to be aware of the influence that this is having on our children's development at every stage. Like, it's not about RSE, fine, but we're talking about AI, so going to have to mention it. People are saying that like they're putting YouTube videos on for their kids that are Miss Rachel or whatever else, but it's not that. It's like an AI generated copy of. So they put on an ABC video and it's not even making real sounds of the alphabets and saying real words. So we just have to be really careful. We're the adults. We've got critical thinking skills and we need to be really, really hyper vigilant of what our kids are looking at, because I think that if a lot of parents sat and scrolled through their kids' feed, they'd be horrified.
Absolutely. And it's like you said, it's not just being aware of incel culture. It's not just being aware of misogyny online or extreme pornography. And we're going to talk about that in a little while. But it's also being aware that young people are being fed so much misinformation online.
Yeah.
And some of that is AI generated to make it look super real, to really make sure that these young people are fed that rhetoric and not the other. Like, the amount of times, and it's slowly built, I think, since me and you both started in sexual health, but the amount of times we hear young people talk to us about not using contraception because of this, that, and the other, something that they've read online. I think it's the same now with condom use. Like, we've been scratching our heads, and we were talking about it in the last, in our series about like, why aren't young people using condoms? And now I wonder whether it's because of the influence of being online and what they see, and maybe being fed so much misinformation about that, or, I have no idea. But
I think that just leads us very nicely and directly into the conversation of pornography, really, because that is something that's been added to the updated guidelines to have more information on extreme pornography and about the difference between porn and real life, and kind of helping young people. It's not just like, say it isn't enough to simply say this exists and it's harmful for you, but actually we need to be explaining like this exists and this is why it's harmful for you. And like for me, definitely the condom thing is one of that, because you don't see condoms used in porn. So young people don't think that's a part of normal sex.
And there's lots of, and in the guidance, they specifically mention things like choking and strangulation and the dangers of those things, which I think is super important, because we've definitely met lots of young people whose first time sex, those are the sort of sexual acts that they're doing. And it's like saying that's, and we hear 15-year-olds saying that, and it's like that content, and we have to keep hammering that home. That content is not made for children to learn about how sex works or what happens during sex.
And I think the fact of the matter is that like there'll always be people that want to engage in more like hardcore sex or be involved in kink and BDSM and any of those things. And people who are involved in those communities have like guidelines and boundaries and safe words and consent and pre-organized discussions about their limits and their like hard nose and all
a lot of hard work goes into making those situations safe and happy and comfortable, and we don't see that if you click on porn. And the problem is and we've been saying this for a long time, but if young people are literally being exposed to porn, the average age is 13, but young people as young as 11, even young as 6, are now being exposed to extreme or harmful pornography or online sexual media. It means we need to start having those conversations. And one thing that I really appreciate about the government guidance now is that they are saying, if young people in your setting, whether that's at primary or secondary school, and that they're either starting to send nudes or they're being exposed to online sexual media or adult content, you need to start having those conversations. It doesn't necessarily matter in that case how old they are. You can always tailor conversations like we've spoken about to be age appropriate.
You can.
But the topic itself, if it's happening and those young people are seeing it, you can't just wait until they're in year 9 if they've seen it in year 6.
Yeah.
Because then you haven't, like you said, prevented the harmful behavior from happening, or like the harmful stereotyping from happening. And young people, like we've said, aren't looking for it. It's just popping up for them. I've read something really horrific that particularly young boys, and it's like what you were saying with your son and being advertised that AI girlfriend, they are 5 clicks away from an misogynistic or a video related to incel culture that is targeting them.
Yeah.
All of these things, like you said, are profitable, and they're targeting young people. They're not stumbling upon them by accident. It's not because they've been looking for something similar. It could be as easy as going from that Italian brain rot 5 clicks later to a video where someone's strangling or choking someone during sex.
Yeah, and I think like we know that you see content, you think like, oh, okay, well, we were talking about the Online Safety Act and how people now have to age verify to go on pornography and whatever else. And it's like, okay, that's all well and good. But like, I watched a video on Instagram the other day where it was like 7 days of wearing my favorite necklace. And it's a girl just with somebody filming with their hand out, going and grabbing a girl's throat like every day. Like she's in like a different outfit, and as soon as she's ready, the person comes up and puts their hand around her throat. And it's like, I get it, like that's adult content for adults, but that's on Instagram. It's not explicit.
No
one's going to ban that and take it away, but it is normalizing something which isn't a normal part of like young people's sexual development. Like it takes more pressure to open a can of Coke. Every kid in every assembly has probably heard me say this, and everyone gets annoyed with my analogies, but it takes more pressure to open a can of Coke than it does to injure someone's throat by strangulation and cause injury. And it is causing a huge increase in girls having, it's causing like strokes in young women, non-fatal strangulation, essentially. Like it could cause brain damage, it can cause somebody to have a stroke, it can cause damage to like the vocal cords. And it's a really hard one, because also it's quite traumatizing, and we see the girls who are like, oh my God, I was so scared because I was having sex and I was actually relaxing and having a really nice time with this person, and then they swore at me and choked me.
Yeah
And they're like, what? Because also there is gender disparity in watching pornography. Sometimes the young girls have not seen and not been exposed to the same content as the boys have. So when they think, oh, this will be really sexy if I just put my hand around my throat and say a swear word, they don't get it. They're not getting off on the same thing. So
we saw that and when I hear it out loud, you're like, nah, not 14, 15, 16-year-olds. But it's true. It is true. And it is deeply affecting them. And they genuinely are thinking that is the way that sex should be. Because we saw a colleague of ours who is a RSE teacher, goes into schools, does similar things to what we do, was working with a group of year 10 girls and was asking them what sex looked like, what normal sex is, like what does pleasure look like, essentially, which isn't on the guidance still, but it's something we will always talk about.
Always.
And they were writing things on Post-it notes like choke me, strangle me, hit me, hurt me, like really explicit, sort of almost like degrading things for them to be sort of like dominated.
But also they don't even know if that's what they like or what they're into.
No, of course not.
You're not like sexually liberated. You haven't explored anything. No. And now you think your place is just like submission and pain. It's like,
Yeah. And it goes against everything, I guess.
We thought.
Yeah. And also everything that we work for when we work in the sexual health clinic, when we speak to young people, and we spend so long talking to 14, 15-year-old girls that come in and they're like, oh, I just didn't use a condom because he didn't want to, or I didn't like the feel of it. And we're like, and they've come in for emergency contraception at 14, 15 and their parents don't know. And we have to have big, long conversations with them about body autonomy and their pleasure and their right to have good, comfortable sex. And we do the same with boys and young men. But I think more often than not, I don't know about you, we have these conversations with young girls because they're more likely to come into the clinic.
We definitely meet more girls than we do boys. When we meet boys, they always come from a place of like, if they've come in, it's normally because they're really worried. Yeah. And they're really anxious, and sometimes they're really uncomfortable with it as well. So a minefield. And this hasn't actually been added to the curriculum at any particular age or key stage to fit nicely into our structure that we did before, but more like, here's some information that you need to include. Yeah. It's hard.
Really hard, because we were saying on the way here, like there's not more time carved out for these topics. And like we just said, we've just scratched the surface with those: pornography, incel culture, deep fakes, AI, being online, humongous, like never ending probably. You could do a humongous deep dive into those and never really get to the bottom of any of it. And there's no more space on the curriculum. Teachers aren't being given extra training
or time
to prepare for those things. And it does make me worry a little bit that other topics like STIs, contraception, they're going to sort of fall by the wayside, because I understand like those problems feel massive. And we talked about this in our last episode after adolescence came out. It seemed like there was a real like, oh, we really have to do something about this. But like, those important fundamentals of relationships and sex education, I think they are going to suffer quite a lot, because I already feel like potentially, just from what young people, when they're coming to us and talking to us, the contraception STI information is lacking in school.
Yeah, it's really not good. Like, there's a lot of misinformation, and there's a lot of young people that don't understand the basics of like how they get pregnant.
Yeah.
Like, I met somebody who was 14 last week and who told me, oh, well, I must be infertile because I've had unprotected sex loads of times and I'm not pregnant. And so at 14, they'd just decided that they didn't need to access any contraception because on the handful of occasions that they had had unprotected sex, they hadn't fallen pregnant.
Yeah.
And it's like luck and coincidence, sheer luck and coincidence. There is nothing more to that. And it's really, I don't know, it's really strange.
It is.
And it's really hard to target and hard to get around and hard to ensure, like you said, that we're making the best of teaching the fundamentals while adapting to an ever-changing world. The funny thing is that statistically young people are having less sex than any other generation.
Yeah.
Because they're all like putting each other off. Like, if you all want to, I don't know, be rough and think it's like porn, or be misogynistic, or only be interested in what you see online, or like girls, their expectations of dating and relationships
very
and stuff
low
like that. Yeah,
that's what I mean. We spend so much time building young people's self-esteem and confidence, and that is a massive part of the curriculum still. Is like, I read something really interesting. It said it's about, you know, noticing for teenagers that there are emotional, like what's normal for them to be feeling emotionally versus like having a mental health condition, and the curriculum is really trying to like make those points. And so for, you know, young people who are feeling, you know, going through periods of feeling low, to be like, well, that's really normal. And it's all about building resilience, which is your favorite thing. You love talking about.
I do talk a lot about young people and resilience, because I think it is hard. Like, they need to have resilience to deal with some of these.
To deal with the world.
Yeah. But no amount of resilience is going to stop someone making a deep fake of you.
No,
so
it's true. I know.
So true.
I know.
Right. What else? Because we could just talk about this.
But I thought
for
maybe
the whole
we
time.
could break it up a little bit with some other positives, and that the in primary education, which I'm chuffed about because I obviously work with the under 12s, they now have to know all of the correct words for anatomy. So before, vulva was not mentioned in the curriculum, but now it is. So young people in primary school will learn what the vulva is, and that will stop us from having conversations with teenagers who are like, what, I've got more than one hole? It's like, yes. So that's great, because also, I really feel like that's going to change
as a parent,
things.
if your 15-year-old doesn't know that their period and pee comes out of different holes, please tell them.
Yeah.
Like, if you're old enough to be having sex, you need to know what holes what.
100%.
Like, that really is.
Yeah. And you just fundamentally need to know the difference between your vulva and your vagina. So I think that is brilliant.
So can we just clarify? Can you give a perfect explanation for anyone who might be listening to this thinking, well, I don't really know what the difference is, and is it not all just words for the same thing? Can you give your top definition, vulva and vagina?
Yeah, so the vulva is everything you see on the outside of the female genitals. So it includes your pubic, where your pubic hair usually grows, your labia, minora and majora, everything that you see on the outside. So when you look in the mirror naked, you can see your vulva.
It's all vulva.
Yeah, you can't
see your vagina.
And your vagina is the inside. So where you would put a tampon, where your period blood comes out, where a baby might come from.
Yeah, where your cervix is.
Where your cervix is. It's like, the way I describe it is like a little canal. It's the little canal to your cervix and your womb. And you have a vaginal opening. So the hole is your vaginal opening.
Yeah.
But
and on top of that, you have a different hole called your urethra.
Yeah.
That you pee out of.
That you pee out of.
And we have this conversation like
too many times.
Yeah,
too much.
I genuinely didn't realise that one of the most common conversations I was going to be having as a sexual health outreach worker is like, this is your body.
Yeah.
Like, or telling people to go and look at their own anatomy in a mirror. Like, the amount of teenage girls, and they don't, like, we have diagrams that we use. And one of the things, shock horror on the diagram, because it is important, is the clitoris. And they're like, oh, I ain't got a clue. Like, what?
No, that's my favourite.
Like, I don't understand. How are you having sex?
In that workbook that you have, where you get to the end and you talk about like what sex is, what are our bodies, and you have all the labelling of the diagrams for vulva and vagina and penis and testicles. We have 2 separate diagrams. Those are my favourite things, because genuinely their minds are always just absolutely blown. Like, what?
Yeah.
Because it's that, and it's like when you're in primary school and you're labelling where your eyes are, where your nose are, learning what your brain does, learning what your kidneys do, learning what your lungs do. They need to learn about what their genitalia does.
Yeah. And I'm not saying like that everyone needs to be using the terms vulva and penis and things like that in their home all the time. Like, my daughter is a big fan of saying mini. Like, she knows what a vulva and a vagina is. She knows what the difference between the two is.
I asked her the other day, didn't I? I said, where does a period come from? Yeah. What is a period? And she just answered me in the most simply, like the best way that an 8-year-old could. Yeah,
she's just like...
She's where blood comes out of your vagina. I was like, yeah, great.
Yeah, simple. End of conversation.
We don't need
we'll talk about it more in a few years.
Exactly.
In a few years.
She knows the fundamentals.
Exactly. And like, you don't have to be militant about it. You don't have to like be like, we in this house, we must say these words. But it is really important that they can, or like, I don't know, like doctor's appointments. Are you sore or itchy? Yeah. Where? In your vulva or in your vagina? Like, does it hurt on the inside or the outside?
Is so
and it
important.
is mad that in a sexual health clinic, like our reception team, our nurses, our HCAs, our doctors, whatever, are like regularly having conversation with adult women where they're trying to explain like what hurts, your vagina or your vulva.
But I remember we said in one of our last episodes that one of our nurses was like, you need to mention this on your podcast because I'm sick of telling grown men that they need to pull back their foreskins and clean behind it, because some of them didn't know that that's what they needed to do. And it's like all those things at that top end, year 5, year 6, that's the stuff that they are going to be learning. And also it has been put on the curriculum that although it's not compulsory for every school to teach, if schools think it is appropriate for that particular cohort of students, that they can start having conversations around sex. Yeah. So like we said in our previous episodes, they will start learning about reproduction through like how animals reproduce or plants reproduce. But also, I
still remember learning about like plants have a stamen or something like that. I can't remember all of it, but
yeah. But like that is an option, and I think that's brilliant because and again, you know, parents still have the right to withdraw, but parents have a lot in this guidance. I feel like parents are going to feel a lot more included in what their young people learn. Yeah. So they're going to be shared more resources. Parents are going to have their say about some of the conversations that are going to be had with their children. There should be more like coffee mornings and things like that to prepare them. And that's all in aid, I guess, for parents to not withdraw, like to really give the best opportunity to all of the young people to say, we're going to do this in the best way we possibly can. Here's what the guidance says. Here's what we've got. Here's our RSE policy. What do you think? Share your thoughts with us and let's work on this together, rather than like
making it a contentious issue and falling out of parents over it. Because the thing is, that just disadvantages young people. So it's like leads nicely into it. But realistically, another change to the guidance is some of the information around people being LGBT and how that is handled in the RSE curriculum. And it's really difficult. Like I've mentioned before, I'm an LGBT person. I'm married to a trans woman. I have 2 children that are school-age children, and I work in sexual health. So I come from a place of having quite a lot of knowledge and information about this, but I find it really difficult because the guidance is not so clear. When it comes to, it's particularly, let's talk about primary first before we move on to how it's sort of impacting secondary school. In primary school, there's been a really kind of slight adjustment to the wording, really. And this comes from talking about diverse families. So families like mine that are made up like essentially not the same as a normal structure of like mum, dad, 2.4 children. And actually it's really hard. So the guidance has changed from saying something along the lines of you must to it's strongly recommended, which feels a bit like it was a must. You could have kept it as a must, right?
Yeah.
and they'll go, oh, we do strongly recommend it. But then what that means is that people that go to schools that are more likely to be like faith schools or have a high population of people of a certain religion, that they'll have the option to pick and choose whether they follow that strong recommendation.
Yeah. And it feels like the diverse family structures are still very much included in the RSE guidance.
Yes, they are.
So that means like a grandparent being responsible for children, or a carer, or a guardian, or a foster family. So that feels very like that is still really important, and we still want young people to know. I guess it's the LGBT element,
it is.
that we feel as professionals who go in and support a lot of LGBT young people.
Yeah.
And like you say, you have, you know, personal experience, personal beliefs, personal values, that we feel like the guidance has slightly like left out, or like
they are.
They've just sort of and that goes on deeper within the guidance when it comes to gender identity. So.
So it's hard that it's like you can't make people's families optional. And also you can't make it controversial for a child to say, I live with my two mums. It's not illegal. It's not illegal to be same-sex parents. It's not illegal for somebody to be trans. It is still a protected characteristic under the Equalities Act. Gender reassignment is a protected characteristic. It is deserving of respect. And the guidelines do say that. But it feels like they've gone as far as possible to basically appease people that don't like it. And I also find myself really deeply personally torn about that, because I think it's more important that kids are in the lesson and they find out about this online stuff that might be causing them harm, or like violent pornography, or about, like sex and misogyny and all of those kind of things that are causing a lot of harm. But so it's that really awkward thing of like, we kind of get why you're doing it, but you could have just put it all in and not made it like that. And actually the key issue with the new guidelines is that it says something like,
it says we will be teaching that young people will be taught about biological sex and gender reassignment, but they will not be discussing gender identity, which is seen as a contested topic or subject.
And so that's quite interesting. Like, gender identity is something that I have taught. And it doesn't just boil into talking about person being trans. When we talk about misogyny, we talk about gender identity.
Absolutely.
And we talk about how we have this understanding that there's like this innate response of like what is a man and what is a woman. But then if you look at gender expectations across the world, well, how a man dresses or presents himself in England to in Russia to in African country or to somewhere else, like, is entirely different. And so it's a shame. It's a shame that we can't, but it's really difficult,
how
isn't
can we
it?
have conversations about misogyny and violence against women and girls if we're not able to talk about gender identity? Because like you said, it's not just about trans people.
And it's hard because it's like, it is important for kids that could potentially be trans kids, but trans people make up like 0.5% of the population. So it's like,
I feel like what you're saying, I feel like I agree with it's appeasing certain people, and it's sort of making it, in inverted commas, easier.
And this has happened in response to things
law
that have happened and changes to the law in the UK over the last 6 months, and like a real political push. Like I said, I'm married to a trans person who's been transitioned for like many years, and like we have 2 children together, and like there wasn't really a political pushback, and it wasn't really like that big a deal as it has been in the last 6 months. And like wasn't really that big deal for like my oldest kid was at school and then had a parent that transitioned while he was at school, and it was fine, and no one really said anything, and the teachers are really supportive and stuff like that. And I don't understand really. But at the end of the day, if we want to be professionals and get to go into schools and do any of the good work that we want to do, all we can do is say, hey, there are safe people for you to talk to in the world. there are people that you will be able to find that will respect your identity, or not gender identity, whatever way we're putting it. But like, there'll be people that respect you as a trans person. There will be support out there for you. It's really a tough ride at the moment for people. But the curriculum is the curriculum, and it's really hard to be bound by that. But like, me personally, I'm not going to ever go against what it says, because I want to go into schools and talk about sex and pleasure and STIs and harmful behavior and all of this. And it's like, wow, okay, so I'm going to have to do that at the detriment of my identity.
Yeah. But I'm just thinking then about all of the sessions that we do around relationships and consent. Yeah. And a lot of because of the rise of violence against women and girls, because of the rise of misogynistic online content and influences and harmful ideologies, we've had to really adapt some of our sessions around healthy relationships and consent. And we do lots of like values continuums, which we've spoken about before. And we do use gender stereotyping, or we do use that gender versus gender, like sort of, dynamic sometimes when we're trying to give examples and scenarios to young people to make it relevant to them so they can really see themselves.
Even like when we talk about coercion and when we talk about power imbalance in a relationship, we often talk about someone being in like a same-sex relationship where one person is out to their family and one person is not. And all of the young people, regardless of their sexuality, can understand how that creates a like change in a power dynamic and how that might impact a relationship. And so when people talk about inclusive RSE, they don't mean doing loads of lessons on like LGBT people and like sex, because actually STI risks are the same.
Yeah.
Pregnancy risk is less.
But a healthy relationship,
is the
still
same.
applies. It applies in all situations, and so does online content, sharing images, all of that stuff. And
actually, sometimes vulnerable young people, this is the really scary and dangerous thing, is that if people can't feel safe to discuss things like their gender,
or can't see themselves in the lesson being delivered.
Yeah, can't see themselves represented, feel judged, feel ashamed, any of those things. Where do they go to find information? They'll end up online with people that can exploit the fact that that is a vulnerability then, that they don't have information. So
I do think it's a real shame that has been added into the guidance.
So do I. And I think that it was a bit of a like big bang comment, like, oh, we're going to do this. And actually it feels like we talked about how lots of us grew up under Section 28 and we didn't, it was very like, don't say gay and that kind of stuff. And realistically, it's kind of a similar moral panic around trans people. And I don't know, some people say it's all about protecting children and whatever else. But actually for a lot of people, it's really obvious that it puts people at risk. And it's really hard for people like us because it's our job to teach the curriculum.
That's it. It's our job to teach the curriculum, but also to support vulnerable people.
Yeah.
And we support lots of vulnerable trans people.
We do. And we have like an LGBT plus worker. We work in partnership with the local Pride organisation, and shout out Luton Trans Admin, like literally. And with the youth club, and the youth club have an in Luton, Toco Youth Club have an LGBT plus youth club. Yeah. And actually, cool, fine. We won't talk about it in school.
We'll talk about it
outside of school.
Don't you worry.
Because don't think that people won't still come to a clinic to get information.
Absolutely. And young people do more and more. Like we were talking in the car on the way here about all the young people that have been to see us in maybe the last 2 weeks who haven't been in school because it's been summer holidays. And they've been coming to us about a variety of different things. And actually they've been coming for one thing. And because professionals have shown an interest in something that they're struggling with that maybe is taboo, maybe there's stigma attached, maybe nobody's been nice to them about it, maybe they've never said, oh, actually, what my boyfriend did was sexual assault, and I can tell you, this person sat in front of me. I mean, that's at least we have that. And like, I feel like
you had a boy, like we've had boys come in who have like not known anything about contraception and accidentally got someone pregnant, and then are like utterly traumatized, like
completely
distraught,
traumatized,
and being treated like the villain.
I know,
like this awful boy got this girl pregnant, and he's like, I didn't mean to, and I didn't know what was going on. Like, oh my God, let's
at the
do
end of
better
the
for our
day,
kids.
even if they're having sex, they're all still kids.
Yeah,
And you
they
know,
are.
when
And they
sit in
act
front,
like kids.
and they do, and they're vulnerable and they're emotional and they don't know what to do with themselves or how they got themselves in this situation, and they feel like this setting of a sexual health clinic is way too grown up for them, and they're completely freaking out. We've had some people freak out on us last week.
Yeah, we've had people storm out, freak out, like tears, tantrums.
Yeah. And I just feel like that's now going back to the curriculum, that's now being what they're taught, maybe 1-2 lessons a year, if that, on all of these topics.
Yeah.
And now it's about to increase. The topics are about to increase, and the level of knowledge on certain subjects is maybe going to go up, and levels of certain topics is going to go down, because how are schools meant to navigate this? How are teachers meant to navigate this?
No, I know. And I think it's really telling, isn't it, that when we put out the email about doing the Chronically online sessions and Sexual Health Week, when I'm telling you in 4 years, I've never had such a response.
Never. From schools as well, because schools are busy.
Yeah,
they're
really
busy. Whereas they were like, yeah, we want year 7, year 8, year 9, year 10, year 11.
Yeah. Literally everyone was like, can you come into like all of our year groups? And all of a sudden we were like, oh no.
Because I think the thing is we know, and like rounding back to Sexual Health Week and being chronically online, and that is very reflective of the new 2025 guidance. Like their behavior online and the way they're forming relationships online, viewing sexual content, engaging in certain like influences, materials and content or whatever, is having an effect on young people's relationships and sexual development.
Yeah, and their well-being and self-esteem.
Yeah. And it's almost like a bit of a crisis pandemic.
Yeah.
Like I really wanted this. When we went into this podcast, we were like, I wonder how, we were like, I don't know how this is going to go today. I don't know.
Yeah.
But when we talk about it, it feels like crisis management. And as a parent carer, I can imagine it definitely feels like that. And you've spoken to me about how it feels like, oh my God, this is terrifying. And also how
I feel like, am I the arsehole? Because like, I just want to turn it all off. Like me, I don't know, like shout me if you're another parent out there with kids, my kids' age, and you just want to turn it all off, because like, is it me? Did I see too much? I don't know. But like I see influencers posting videos and it's like, oh, ha ha ha, when it's summer holidays and you just realize that your kid spent 16 hours straight online and you're like, that makes me want to like panic. I am worried for these children, for my children and your children and all of these children, because it can't be okay to spend 16 hours straight online.
No, it can't continue continue like this.
Because I don't know whether people think they're keeping their kids more safe by keeping them inside. They're keeping them away from the threats of the world. But statistically.
I mean, I don't know the facts. Maybe I'll go and look it up and post it on Instagram, but I would place my bets that they are doing more harm sat inside online than if they went out to the park with their friends.
Yeah. I'm sure of it.
I'm sure of it.
So let's put this online and we can be chronically online too. Oh, it's hard.
How do we round this up? Okay, I guess what is our take homes or advice for the new guidance that will be put in place as of September, when these kids go back to school tomorrow, when we're recording this, for some of them starting secondary school, their big first day.
Oh my gosh, my son's starting a new school tomorrow. I'm more scared than he is.
So what's our advice to parents, carers, professionals, anybody listening to this about these new topics, how we're gonna handle it, how we're going to move forward with all these challenges that young people are facing? Because I for sure would not want to grow up in the time that young people are. What do we want to say? What's our positive
I would say my first thing is that we need to bear in mind that just because it says it's on the curriculum now, then that doesn't mean that that's problem solved. Your child or young person might get one lesson about this year. They might get 2 lessons about it this year. If you're really lucky, it might be like embedded into an English lesson in a debate for some
if you're really lucky.
For some cross-curricular, that kind of thing. But realistically, just because it's on the national curriculum, that doesn't mean it's problem solved. So watch what your kids are watching. look at their feeds, look at their algorithms. Your phone is not a private, like their phones are not private spaces. They don't have autonomy over that device. Look at what they're watching and talk about it. Because that would be really important. And my second thing is like, you need to know as an adult how to use the report remove tools.
Definitely.
You need to know how to tell your child how to take something down.
Yeah.
You need
how to report something that they've seen online that they didn't like, that was harmful content. Show them how to do that on Instagram, TikTok, whatever. Don't let them just scroll. You know, encourage them to not just scroll past content that's horrific.
But how do we click? I don't like this. I don't want to see this.
Yeah. Or report it if it's harmful and age inappropriate, or should not be uploaded onto a social media site in the first place. Because, you know, like we said, sites, social media apps, they are supposedly cracking down on age appropriate content and restricted content, but
that does mean nudity.
No,
that does mean that it doesn't matter if there's like a strong violent sexual connotation to something, or if something is like violently misogynistic in its language. That does mean we are cracking down on removing naked female bodies. So anyway, because we were wrapping up.
This is what I mean.
It's hard.
How are they going to do it?
Yeah, I don't know. And my about the LGBT side of it, and about gender identity, and about all of that. If be a safe adult for your child and young person. Like if you have an LGBT kid, then be a safe adult for them. And if you don't feel like you can have that conversation, help them find someone that can, who is a safe adult. Like if school can't be that safe place for that open and honest discussion, then unfortunately you're going to have to find it elsewhere. Like, is there a pride network in your local area? Do they do family events? Like in Luton, they do Sunday socials with Pride in Luton. And it's just like a once a month hangout for like queer families, like whether that's same-sex parents or whether that's a parent and their like LGBT child, or just anyone who's bored and fed up and wants to come along. So seek out resources in your local area, find out what's available. Is there a youth club? Can your sexual health clinic help? Like we have an LGBT plus support worker. So although these guidelines might limit and impact what he can do in schools, they don't limit and impact what we can do outside of school and in the community.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I think you've said it all. I think it's and it's about having the conversation with them on all topics, every single topic. I mean, especially if there are more added to the RSE guidance and more added to the curriculum. School days aren't getting longer.
No.
Lessons aren't getting longer. It's more important than ever, I feel, to have those chats like about condom use, about consent, about relationships. Like don't forget about those fundamentals either. We have young people coming into our clinic who are having condomless sex and they don't have a valid reason for us. Like, please have that conversation with them. If you know they're sexually active, if they have a partner, if they're inviting them over, if they're staying in each other's rooms, just ask them, just say, hey, are you using condoms? Have you got some? Do you need me to help you find where your nearest one is? Like,
and condoms are free.
They're free.
Help us take them for free.
Yeah. Come and pick them up for your young people, whatever, you know. We're the sexual health clinic. We can only do as much. We're not in your homes. We're not in your houses. We're not with those young people on the streets. We're not in the schools.
Don't fly off the handle at your kid. If you see them looking at something online that you feel uncomfortable with, you need to have that conversation and explain to them why you're uncomfortable, what the harm might be. But don't just be like, you're bad for looking at this, because it might not be their fault. So
absolutely.
On that note,
thank you so much for listening or watching if you have been. This has been a very special episode of RSE for Grown-Ups, all about the new 2025 guidance. Please do give this a like, a rating,
a share,
follow us on social media. We're on Instagram and TikTok. We post every week. And follow us for all sorts of Sexual Health Week content, which will be on starting from the 15th of September. Thank you.
Bye.